Oh, wait a minute. Hello? 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 All right. Okay, there we go.
Item number SCP-001. Object class Euclid/Keter.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Site 19. Today we are doing orientation for all level 4 clearance potential employees who work for the SCP Foundation. Before we begin, I'm going to go over a few things with you, including some terms that you may not understand. Feel free to take notes. First off, we will begin with how we classify the SCP here. Now, SCP refers to any anomalous item that we have contained within any of the Foundation sites. We will begin with the SCP Safe class. Now, safe does not mean harmless. These items can be extremely dangerous. What it refers to is the way we can contain them. Their containment is the lowest. They are not really at risk of making a containment breach, which is why they are kept in such low security area. Then we have the SCP Euclid. Now, Euclid are much more dangerous and they are much harder to contain. Think of it as a medium security prison. We have much more security. Everything is usually under armed guard. Anyone trying to approach or interact with any SCP without proper clearance or permission will be terminated on sight. They are dangerous. So, when you're dealing with any SCP, please bear that in mind. Then we come to the Keter class. Now, the Keter class is actually named after Dr. Keter, who was one of the very first fatalities that was taken out by SCP-001. The Keter class is extremely dangerous. They are kept under the heaviest guard and in much more secure containment areas. Now, if you ever get to work with any of the Keter class SCPs, you must follow protocol to the letter. Sometimes even a level 4 clearance will not get you anywhere near them. So be mindful. And you are all here as potential employees for one of 4 areas. Researchers, research assistants, armed security details at any of our sites, or for any of our tactical units for acquiring any new SCPs. So, we will now begin our first lesson. Our first SCP that we will be looking at is Euclid Keter. It is the Gate Guardian. It is the one that killed Dr. Keter. So please pay very close attention. Please hold any questions until after, and then I will be very happy to answer anything you have to ask. Let's go.
Item number SCP-001. Object Class Euclid/Keter. Special Containment Procedures. Because of the nature of SCP-001, no containment procedures are necessary. 24/7 monitoring of SCP-001 is to take place from a safe 10 kilometers plus distance from a predetermined location, Site 0. The location of Site 0 is known only to the current SCP Administrator
Hello,
and
Chris.
a single Overseer-level agent of Abrahamic Faith, 0514, assigned to monitor SCP-001
you after
from
class.
Site 0. Said agent is authorized to take any action necessary should SCP-001 become active, and is required to immediately alert the Administrator and all other Overseer-level agents should SCP-001 show any change in behavior, as this may constitute the beginning of a Patmos XK class end-of-the-world scenario. Should SCP-001 become active in any way, personnel are required to immediately consult the Patmos series of emergency orders. Decoding algorithms for emergency order
Good
Patmos
man.
are to be maintained on site
notes.
at Site 0 in the possession of the designated observer, and are to be transmitted to SCP Foundation offices only in the event of SCP-001 becoming active. Foundation personnel with vital roles in one or more variants of emergency procedure Patmos are to be advised to take the following precautions: to maintain good relations with one or more organized Abrahamic faiths, to maintain on hand a supply of the following: holy water, a rosary, crucifix, cross, prayer rug, or other symbol blessed by an Abrahamic cleric of bishop or equivalent higher rank, a copy of Abrahamic scriptures, Torah, Bible, Quran, and standard emergency supplies in mobile form, bug-out bag. In case of a pre-millennial rapture scenario, all vital personnel are to designate a secondary operative of non-Abrahamic faith. Said secondary operative is to be informed of the location of the primary designate's copy of emergency procedure Patmos and mimetic kill agent inoculant, and is to be kept on ready status to take over the primary's duties as necessary. To maintain familiarity with all other SCPs involved in possible Patmos XK class end-of-the-world scenarios. Description: SCP-001 is a humanoid entity, approximately 700 cubits in height, located in an undisclosed location near the intersection of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. The
Hard to
following
get to.
features are known about the entity. A number of luminous, wing-like appendages emerging from the shoulders, back, temples, ankles, and wrists of the entity. Although an accurate count has never been established, most observers place the number of wings at anywhere from 2 through 108, with the mean number being 4. A weapon, possibly a sword or knife, SCP-001-2. The weapon appears to emit flames at a temperature rivaling that of the sun, based on spectrographic analysis, although there appear to be no destructive effects from the intense heat on the surrounding area. Any entity that approaches within 1 kilometer of SCP-001 is immediately struck by the weapon and obliterated from existence. Any and all hostile actions taken towards SCP-001 have resulted in the annihilation of the attacker, regardless of range. See Incident Report Re Indian Ocean Submarine Missile Experiment, December 26, 2004. SCP-001 appears to be standing with its head bowed in a gesture of supplication, with SCP-001-2 held in both hands point down in front of it. Since originally recorded by the founder over years ago, SCP-001 has not deviated from this stance.
Nope.
Human beings exposed to SCP-001 report hearing a voice in their heads, giving them a directive which the subject reports cannot be disobeyed. The most common directive is forget, which results in the subject walking away from SCP-001 with no memory of having encountered it. On rare occasions, however, other directives have been given. The most famous of these is the one given to the founder, prepare, which he has claimed formed the impetus for founding to catalog and contain any and all supernatural and/or paranormal artifacts that represent a serious threat to the current existence of humanity. This is the organization now known as the SCP Foundation. Observers have reported that SCP-001 appears to be standing in front of a gate of immense proportions. Long-range photographs have occasionally detected what appears to be a pastoral grove within, containing numerous other entities of the same composition as SCP-001, as well as several fruit trees of unknown composition. Of particular note are 2 fruit trees of immense proportion near what appears to be the center of the grove. One, it is noted, appears to be an ordinary apple tree, although the other bears a fruit unknown
Oh,
on
absolutely.
Earth, described as
We may need
data
them.
expunged. It is the avowed belief of the founder that the gate which SCP-001 guards may be the gate to expunged, based on correlations with ancient Babylonian texts and the Dead Sea Scrolls, in which case one can deduce that the entity known as SCP-001 may be expunged. Addendum 001-A, Experimentation Re SCP-001-2's effective kill range. 1. Experiment A. 1 Class D personnel instructed to approach SCP-001 as closely as possible on foot. Result: upon making visual contact with SCP-001, subject is ordered to leave. Subject immediately turns away from entity and walks away. Despite repeated orders to continue the experiment, Class D personnel refuses to obey and is terminated. Upon termination of Class D personnel, all research staff involved are immediately obliterated by an unknown force, presumably SCP-001-2. 2. Experiment B. 1 remote-operated research robot guided to approach SCP-001 from the ground. Result: upon approaching within 1 kilometer of SCP-001, research robot is obliterated, presumably by SCP-001-2. All further attempts at remote reconnaissance have the same result. 3. Experiment C. 100 pre-programmed research drones instructed to approach SCP-001 from multiple angles simultaneously. Result: coordination is successful, and all 100 drones cross the 1 kilometer mark simultaneously. However, all 100 are simultaneously obliterated by SCP-001-2. Designated Observer at Site 0 reports that SCP-001-2 appeared to strike in all directions at once. SCP-001 did not deviate from its stance while this took place. 4. Experiment D. Wire-guided missile fired from a distance of 3 kilometers. Result: SCP-001-2 obliterates weapon, upon crossing the 1 kilometer mark, simultaneously obliterating the launch site and killing all personnel. 5. Experiment E. Multi-warhead intercontinental ballistic
This
missile
was the
fired
dumbest
from
thing they ever
SCP
did.
nuclear submarine Nautilus. Result: Sea Indian Ocean Submarine Missile Experiment, December 26, 2004. 6. Experiment F. SCP-076 and Task Force Omega-7 instructed to approach SCP-001 on foot. Result: SCP-076 refuses to carry out mission despite not being informed of the mission's nature. Upon being asked why, SCP-076 replies, "No. Just no." 7. Experiment G. SCP-073. Due to the results of Experiment F, SCP-073 was not informed of his destination until arriving at Site 0. Result: SCP-073 approached the site on foot. Upon seeing SCP-001, SCP-073 became distressed and asked to abort. SCP-073 was ordered to continue. At that point, the symbol on SCP-073's forehead became data expunged. Experiment was terminated due to data expunged. See Addendum 001-AA. Addendum 001-AA. By executive order of the Administrator, no further experiments are to be carried out re-SCP-001. No further SCPs are to be exposed to SCP-001. SCP-001 is not to be used to dispose of dangerous SCPs. Please see revised containment procedures for details. Addendum. On the following errant transmission was received by Foundation personnel. Initiate emergency procedure Patmos Omega. Attention, all Foundation personnel. The following message was received at approximately this morning from Site 0. SCP-001 has left its location. The gate is open. They are riding forth. Oh God, it's so beautiful. The Lord reigneth. The Lord has reigned. The Lord shall reign forever. The Lord reigneth. The Lord has reigned. The Lord shall reign forever. The Lord reigneth. The Lord has reigned. The Lord shall reign forever. The Lord, He is God. 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 Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God. The Lord is one. Because of this event's confluence with the recent breach of SCP-995, the opening of SCP-616, and the activation of SCP-098, the Foundation is required to immediately begin preparations for an XK-class end-of-the-world scenario. SCP-076 and SCP-073 are to be secured immediately. All personnel are to unlock and decode Emergency Order Patmos Omega and follow all orders within. Site 19 is to be secured, and all non-essential SCPs and personnel terminated and/or destroyed. Repeat, because of this event's confluence with the recent breach of SCP-995, the opening of SCP-616, and the activation of SCP-098, the Foundation is required to immediately begin preparations for an XK-class end-of-the-world scenario. SCP-076 and SCP-073 are to be secured immediately. All personnel are to unlock and decode Emergency Order Patmos Omega and follow all orders within. Site 19 is to be secured, and all non-essential SCPs and personnel terminated and/or destroyed. Repeat, because of this event's confluence with the recent breach of SCP-995, the opening of SCP-616, and the activation of SCP-098, the Foundation is required to immediately begin preparations for an XK-class end-of-the-world scenario. SCP-076 and SCP-073 are to be secured immediately. Cain and Abel, my two sons. I am coming. All personnel are to unlock and decode. Behold, I stand at the gate and knock, and if Anyan's follow, all I'll KHAF 3242, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth, and the fruit of signal lost. Upon contacting Site 0, 0514 responded that no such message had been sent from his location. and that SCP-001 remained inert. The transmission was initially determined to be a hoax. However, close examination of the transmission reveals a timestamp dated years in the future. It is theorized that data expunged. Lesson complete.
All right. Now, do we have any questions? Are there any questions? No? And, all right. Now, as you can see, a lot of these SCPs can be extremely dangerous. 001 is the first one that was found, and it did kill Dr. Keter. As you could tell, when they terminated the class, they themselves were destroyed. And I think we can all guess who exactly is guarding that gate. And yes, 073 and 076 are who you think they are. All right, we will move on to the next one, our next SCP that we will be looking at. It's SCP-049.
SCP-035 is to be contained within a steel, iron, and lead-shielded room at all times. Doors are to be triple locked at all times, with the exception of allowing personnel in or out. No fewer than 2 armed guards are to be posted at any time.
This is not just
Guards must remain
049,
outside
this is
at all
several.
times and are not allowed within the containment room.
And these
under
were
any
taken from
circumstances.
security cameras. What you are seeing is actual footage.
SCP-035 appears to be a white porcelain tragedy mask. A highly corrosive and degenerative viscous liquid constantly seeps from its eye and mouth holes, and anything coming into contact with this substance slowly decays over a period of time until it has decayed completely into a pool of the original contaminant. The origin of the liquid is unknown. Conversations with SCP-035 have proven to be informative. Researchers have learned details about other SCP objects and history in general, as SCP-035 claims to have been at many momentous events. SCP-035 displays a highly intelligent and charismatic personality, being both amiable and flattering to all those who speak with it. It comes across as highly intelligent and appears to have a photographic memory. However, psychological analysis has revealed SCP-035 to possess a highly manipulative nature, capable of forcing sudden and profound changes to an interviewer's psychological state. SCP-035 has proven to be highly sadistic and can transform individuals into near-mindless servants with linguistic persuasion alone. SCP-035 has stated that it has intimate knowledge of the workings of the human mind, and implied that it could change anyone's views if given enough time. SCP-035 appears to be a white porcelain comedy mask, although at times, it will change to tragedy. In these events, all existing visual records, such as photographs and video footage, automatically change to reflect its new appearance. Subjects within 1.5 to 2 meters of SCP-035, or in visual contact with it, experience a strong urge to put it on.
Yes. And thank you very much.
When SCP-035 is placed on the face of an individual, an alternate brainwave pattern from SCP-035 overlaps that of the original host. The effectively snuffing it out and causing brain death to the subject. The bodies of possessed subjects decay at a highly accelerated rate, eventually becoming little more than mummified corpses. Nevertheless, SCP-035 has demonstrated the ability to remain in cognitive control of a body experiencing severe structural damage, even if the subject's body literally decays to the point where motion is not mechanically possible.
As you can see, a lot of these SCPs are not to be messed with.
SCP-035 is to be kept within a hermetically sealed glass case, no fewer than 10 centimeters thick. A trained psychologist is to remain on site at all times, and research personnel are not to touch SCP-035 at any time.
The next SCP is SCP-0.
Item number
173.
SCP-173. Object class Euclid. Special containment procedures. Item SCP-173 is to be kept in a locked container at all times.
Please bear in mind what I said about the Euclid class. And watch and see what happens. And you'll understand what I mean.
When personnel must enter SCP-173's container, no fewer than 3 may enter at any time. And the doors to be relocked behind them. At all times, 2 persons must maintain direct eye contact with SCP-173 until all personnel have vacated and relocked the container. Moved to Site 19 in 1993. The origin of the object, as of yet, unknown. SCP-173 is constructed from concrete and rebar, with traces of Krylon brand spray paint. The reddish-brown substance on the floor is a combination of feces and blood. Origin of these materials is unknown. The enclosure must be cleaned on a bi-weekly basis. Personnel assigned to enter the container are instructed to alert one another before blinking. Line of sight must not be broken at any time with SCP-173. The object cannot move while within a direct line of sight, because SCP-173 is animate and extremely hostile. Object is reported to attack by snapping the neck at the base of the skull, or by strangulation.
SCP-173 is very quick to attack a human.
In the event of an attack, personnel are to observe Class 4 hazardous object containment procedures. Personnel report sounds of scraping stone originating from within the container when no one is present inside. This is considered normal, and any change in this behavior should be reported to the acting HMCL supervisor on duty. Item number SCP-173. Object class Euclid. End of file.
Watch it or I'll feed you 049. Ah, yes. You'll see teddy bears in a whole different light after this one.
The whereabouts of SCP-1048 are currently unknown, though it is still believed to be somewhere in Site-24. Subject is to be secured for containment, but any creation of SCP-1048s should be destroyed on sight, unless further evidence warrants less extreme actions. No teddy bears are to be allowed in Site-24 to prevent any confusion or mistaken identity. Any object that resembles a teddy bear is to be reported to the security team immediately. This is not a joke. We have no idea what SCP-1048's full capabilities are. Who knows how many of the damn things are out there by now? Quote,
Hundreds.
Dr. Carve. SCP-1048 is a small teddy bear, approximately 33 centimeters in height. Through testing, composition of the subject revealed no unusual qualities that make it discernible from a non-sapient teddy bear. Subject is capable of moving of its own accord and can communicate through a small range of gestures. The subject regularly shows affection to individuals in ways found endearing by most people. Affection is usually given in the form of a hug to the lower leg, but subject has also been observed dancing, jumping in place, and in 2 separate events it has even drawn childlike pictures for janitorial staff. All Foundation personnel that have interacted with the subject have responded positively to its affection, even D-Class with normally sociopathic tendencies. Attempts at direct communication with SCP-1048 have not been considered successful. Though it is capable of simple gestures to indicate a yes or no answer, it will often not react to lines of questioning concerning its nature and where it originated from. It is not known if this is because SCP-1048 simply does not know the answers, or because it does not want to answer. Though capable of drawing pictures, it has not used its art as a form of communication beyond showing affection, even when encouraged to do so. The more anomalous behavior of SCP-1048 was not observed until approximately 7 months after it was originally secured. It is hypothesized that the subject is able to construct crude replicas of itself using various materials, by a process that has yet to be observed directly by Foundation staff. Dr. Carver has suggested that SCP-1048 uses its endearing qualities to lull those around it into a false sense of security, allowing it to collect materials to produce these creations. Currently, there are 3 known creations of SCP-1048, designated SCP-1048-A, SCP-1048-B, and SCP-1048-C. The nature of these creations has been in stark contrast to SCP-1048's general behavior, as all have exhibited extreme violence towards humans.
And yes, one of them is made entirely out of human ears. Hmm.
It's a warm, late summer evening.
Welcome
Three
to
girls are out for a night on the town.
SCP-049.
Everything seems normal, and the girls are hoping to have a fun time.
This happened just before the Foundation acquired SCP-049.
But little do they know that someone or something is lurking in the shadows, watching, waiting. SCP-049 is a humanoid, roughly 1.9 meters in height, which bears the appearance of a plague doctor. While SCP-049 appears to be wearing the thick robes and mask indicative of that profession, the garments instead seem to have grown out of SCP-049's body over time, and are now nearly indistinguishable from whatever form is beneath them. SCP-049 will become hostile with individuals it sees as being affected by the pestilence, often having to be restrained should it encounter such. If left unchecked, SCP-049 will generally attempt to kill any such individual. SCP-049 is capable of causing all biological functions of an organism to cease through direct skin contact.
Indeed. He is probably one of the more dangerous SCPs that we were able to take into custody.
SCP-049 has expressed frustration after
Hello,
these
Arctic Phone
killings,
Master. Welcome to the
indicating that they have
orientation
done little
session.
to kill the pestilence, though it will usually seek to then perform a crude surgery on the corpse, using the implements contained within a black doctor's bag it carries at all times.
Yes, SCP-049 is one of the most dangerous.
While these surgeries are not always successful, they often result in the creation of instances of SCP-049-2. SCP-049-2 instances are reanimated corpses that have been operated on by SCP-049. These instances do not seem to retain any of their prior memories or mental functions, and they can become extremely aggressive if provoked, or if directed to by SCP-049. Despite these alterations, SCP-049 often remarks that the subjects have been cured.
Yes.
SCP-049 has spent a considerable amount of time studying and performing surgery on various mammalian corpses. SCP-049 will routinely spend several days performing surgery, and then spend several more days documenting its findings in a thick leather journal stored within its doctor's bag. SCP-049 will often seek to share its findings. SCP-049 was discovered during the investigation of a series of unknown disappearances. During a raid on a local home, investigators found several instances of SCP-049-2, as well as SCP-049. While law enforcement personnel engaged the hostile 049-2 instances, SCP-049 was noted as watching the engagement and taking notes in its journal. After all of the 049-2 instances were dispatched, SCP-049 willingly entered Foundation custody.
Strangely enough, yes. We still don't know why. And I have a feeling he's not about to tell us.
SCP-049 is contained within a standard secure humanoid containment cell in Research Sector 02 at Site 19. The following is from the 049 Incident Report. Quote, "Living human subjects are the only way to proceed forward, I have decided. I have gleaned all I can from corpses. My desires turn towards tending to those still living who suffer from the disease."
Indeed. Indeed.
You've just woken up in the middle of a cornfield. You have no idea how you got here.
This SCP is quite interesting.
What's that? You notice something rustling in the corn behind you. Run! It's right behind you. Don't look back. Just keep going. You've made it. You've just reached safety.
Not quite.
Or did you?
This will make you look at telephones in a much different way.
Special containment procedures. All instances of SCP-1498 are to be held in standard containment chambers, located within Site-77. One technician is to be on hand to answer any calls placed to SCP-1498. Transcripts of all calls must be placed in Site-77's non-anomalous records archive. Any persons found to have interacted with SCP-1498 are to be quarantined for 2 months, or until they show any signs of SCP-1498. Subjects showing signs of exposure are to be contained as an instance of SCP-1498-1, which require the same accommodation as instances of SCP-1498. SCP-1498 is a collection of 30 autonomous bundles of phone cords and handsets, assembled in such a way that they resemble sheep. Instances of SCP-1498 are fully ambulatory and will wander their containment chambers aimlessly. The words "make your own custom dreamscapes with your friends at the Oniri Collective" are printed on each instance. If a sapient organism attempts to use one of the phone handsets present on SCP-1498, they will hear 3 rings, followed by a voice identifying themselves as an operator for the Oniri Collective. This voice will instruct the subject on various options they have for dreaming and make suggestions for enhanced dreaming experiences. Following the completion of this call, the subject will lose consciousness for 9 hours. When the subject regains consciousness, they will claim to have experienced the dream they ordered, to any exact specifications they may have made.
And that in itself is extremely dangerous.
Subjects may express a desire to continue using SCP-1498's effect, or attempt to reuse it immediately.
We've lost many D-Class personnel this way.
As subjects are repeatedly exposed to SCP-1498, they may begin to experience changes to their bodily and mental state.
Chow, you are late. I will have to speak to you after class.
SCP-1498 will express a desire to sleep as frequently as possible, preferring the use of SCP-1498 if they are able to. While asleep, portions of the subject's cranium and skull will be replaced with portions of telephones similar to those found on SCP-1498. This has manifested in a variety of ways, including subjects coughing up telephones, with cords extending into their esophagus, telephone wires beginning to grow in place of hair, ringing devices found on rotary telephones within the subject's ears, which may begin ringing continuously, vocalizations being replaced with dial tones.
Within the Foundation, there are many things that look cute but are exceptionally dangerous and should never be approached without proper permission or the proper access levels.
SCP-1498 was recovered on 9/18/1965 from an abandoned office complex in Miami, Florida, USA. After reports of bizarre livestock reached local Foundation assets.
And if you're wondering why sheep, I wondered that myself, but my theory is that you count sheep when you sleep, so what better way for a sleep-associated SCP to present?
When Foundation agents entered the building, they discovered the SCP-1498 instances, one bedroll, approximately half a ton of rotary telephone components, and 2 pints of Type AB blood in a glass jar. In addition, one pajama onesie, well worn, was discovered folded at the bedroll. Testing has shown several months' worth of sweat and body oils soaked into the fabric.
Oh yes, you are level 4.
A rotary phone will assemble itself on the subject's head.
Only level 4s
out of
can
all
be
the
here.
components that have been grown within and on their bodies.
But you may take notes.
As of 11/14/1965, SCP-1498 has been classified as Euclid. End
Yes,
of file.
it will say whether it is Euclid, Keter, or safe. We even have a few neutralized. Yep. Alright, we are not going to look at this because it is not within your levels to be at. You cannot see this. This is for overseers only, and you're not there yet. Are there any questions? Yes, I know, Site 13. But here at Site 19, we do have SCP-049 and SCP-173. They're rather interesting. No, we don't want to see that. Alright, we will take another look. Yes. Well, you are all hopefully going to be working with us very soon. And we're going to take a look at the crowd, which is something that, well, you'll see.
Item number SCP-428. Object Class Euclid.
Yes.
Special Containment Procedures. SCP-428 is to be contained in a 5 meter by 5 meter by 5 meter cell. The containment walls are to be electrified with 30,000 volts. Entrance to the cell via a corridor airlock and access to SCP-428 is restricted to Level 3 researchers and below, while escorted by 2 armed guards. Personnel are to keep 2 meters minimum away from SCP-428 at all times. When not under research, 2 armed guards are to be on duty at all times. Due to SCP-428's effects, all D-Class personnel are to be screened for low IQs and skills that are deemed non-threatening to Foundation security or potential escape attempts. A single D-Class personnel due for termination is to be offered once per month to keep SCP-428 satisfied. However, this will result in the need for an increase in containment space, or for a solution to keep SCP-428 neutralized in the future. Description: SCP-428 is, in appearance, a crowd of huddled human beings. As of 2012 expunged, it consists of 14 people. While huddled in a circle, SCP-428 is to be considered in a dormant state. In this state, the crowd moves with a gentle sway and can be heard audibly mumbling. Upon further inspection,
more a visit
the
to
biological
SCP-616.
internals, organs, bones, muscles, and fluids, leaving only the skin, have been removed from each individual and replaced with an unidentified material that attaches to a central amorphous mass in the middle of the crowd via lengths of flesh similar to umbilical cords. The crowd will not move away from this mass unless a person comes within 2 meters of the central mass. At this point, the crowd will move into its hostile state. The people of SCP-428 closest to the person will attempt to grab and pull them into the middle of the crowd. After contact is made for more than 10 seconds, the person will become a new member of SCP-428. Their internal structures will be removed and replaced with the same material as the other members. Should the potential victim escape, SCP-428 will actively seek them, or another potential victim, out. It will attempt to absorb any and all human life within its immediate vicinity. When all human life has been absorbed, and they have become members of the crowd, it will return to its dormant state. If SCP-428 does not absorb a human being after a maximum of 1 month, it will again actively seek them out. It will do this using a variety of different methods. This includes using acquired skills previously known by people it has absorbed. It will also use psychological tactics to lure people into its grasping distance. Wounds inflicted upon SCP-428's crowd heal at an accelerated rate and do not hinder movement. SCP-428 has been proven to be highly resilient. For instance, a bullet to the leg of a member of the crowd will become lodged, but will not affect the individual's movement, and beyond the substance seeping through, the hole will close up within a few days. However, wounds inflicted upon SCP-428's central mass will cause a great deal of pain to the crowd. This will cause the crowd to collapse in apparent agony, and SCP-428 will retreat from the cause of the injury, using the crowd to protect itself. This has since been used to herd SCP-428 back into containment. Should a connection between SCP-428 and a member of the crowd be severed, it will excrete the substance within it through all its natural orifices. A sample is currently being studied, and the remains have been incinerated. Note: SCP-428 has a hive mind. It therefore does not have the hindrance of movement that would be expected of a sizable crowd. It is able to move a large distance in a relatively short amount of time. It is only limited by the slowest member of the crowd at running speed. SCP-428 appears to maintain some of the memories, skills, and talents of the people it absorbs, and is willing to use these skills to gain further members. Addendum 428A. On date expunged, before the current containment procedures, SCP-428 managed to pick the lock of its cell using a hairpin and belt buckle from members of the crowd. It then positioned a female member of the group slumped in front of the door, sobbing loudly. Researcher, who was unaware of SCP-428's properties, approached the woman and was abruptly grabbed by the rest of the group. SCP-428 proceeded to move through the facility using Researcher as a frontman, resulting in several casualties before the containment breach was alerted, and SCP-428 was recontained. Researcher's comments. People, these casualties are gone. They are SCP-428 now. No matter what it might say or do, they are not your work colleagues nor your friends anymore. Remember this. It may save your life.
Yep.
Lesson complete.
Alright, do we have any questions on this SCP? It is one of the more insidious. We have a few that are like that will actually absorb people or turn them into other things. Are there any questions so far? No? No? I'm going to take that as a resounding no since no one has answered. Yep, there we go. Dr. Ellis said no. You want 682. Are you sure about that? All right. Six, eight, two.
Item number SCP-053. Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-053 is to be contained in an area no less than 5 meters by 5 meters, 16 feet by 16 feet, and given adequate room to move. Toys, books, games, and other recreational devices are to be amply provided and rotated every 3 months. Proper bedding, bathroom, and medical facilities are to be maintained at all times. Food should be provided 3 times daily, and 2 snacks are allowed if requested.
Well, this one is quite short,
No
so
physical
just watch
contact
this
is to
one
be
and then
made
we will
with
find you a Keter class.
SCP-053 without full atmosphere containment suit and eye shield. No eye contact is to be made with SCP-053 for any reason. Any objects given to personnel by SCP-053 may be removed, but must be given to quarantine for examination. Only 1 member of personnel may be present in the room at any given time, and must be secured by a safety line of steel cable. All personnel must be removed from SCP-053's containment chamber within 10 minutes of entering. Any personnel who begin to act erratically, scream, or attempt to grab SCP-053 are to be removed and quarantined. Any personnel attempting to remove their suit are also to be removed and quarantined. No sharp objects or firearms are allowed in SCP-053's containment room. Description: SCP-053 appears to be a small 3-year-old girl. She is capable of basic speech and appears to be slightly above average in mental development. She has a generally pleasant personality and rarely seems upset, becoming agitated only in the presence of groups of people. Any and all humans over the age of 3 who make eye contact with, physically touch, or remain around SCP-053 for longer than 10 minutes will rapidly become irrational, paranoid, and homicidal. Most, if not all, of these feelings will be directed at SCP-053, and afflicted subjects will attempt to kill SCP-053 after first killing or driving off all humans visible to them. Those attempting to kill SCP-053 will suffer massive heart attacks or seizures, and die seconds after doing any physical damage to SCP-053. SCP-053 will regenerate almost instantaneously from any wound, regardless of severity. SCP-053 appears wholly ignorant of these effects, and ignores any and all subjects affected. When questioned about the effect, SCP-053 is incapable of response. Lesson complete.
As you wish. Now, again, 2935. Very well. Hmm. Hmm. Ah, yes. All right, well, we'll watch this one. It's not one of ours, but no one say anything.
SCP 2935. O Death.
Hmm.
Life in the SCP universe continually hangs by a thread, threatened constantly by the existence of a number of dangerous and apocalyptic anomalies. These threats
Indeed.
are countered and contained by the existence of organizations such as the SCP Foundation or the Global Occult Coalition.
Hmm. We
Depending
don't
on
deal
your
with them very
perspective,
often.
their efficacy in carrying out these goals varies, but by and large, life continues. There are a number of SCPs and tales that look at potential apocalypses, but rarely with such totality as SCP 2935, a parallel dimension in which death prevailed. On
Hmm.
April 28, 2016, an SCP Foundation site near Bloomington, Indiana, picked up a distorted and unintelligible radio signal.
Oh, yeah.
Believing it warranting investigation,
I remember
the
this.
team traced the signal to a cave underneath a cemetery in the nearby community of Joppa. Sending a drone into the cave, the team at first didn't realize that anything was amiss, believing that the drone simply exited out of the other end of the cave. After observing the surrounding area and picking up an undistorted version of the radio signal, however,
Hmm.
they realized that the drone had passed through some sort of anomaly to end up in a parallel dimension of sorts. The radio signal seemed to originate from the parallel version of the nearby Foundation site, and had been looping for the last 8 days. The transmission read, "This is an automated emergency broadcast from the SCP Foundation and your national government. One or more of our sites is experiencing a communication breakdown, likely due to a containment breach of unknown magnitude. All citizens are ordered to stay in their homes as containment teams work to secure the breach. This message will broadcast from April 20th, 2016 until..." The transmission suddenly cuts out at this point and then repeats again.
I'll be right back.
Mobile Task Force
I need to take a
Epsilon
phone call.
13, Manifest Destiny, were sent in to explore the anomaly, which took place over the course of 3 manned missions and 1 unmanned mission. The first mission, codenamed Gauntlet, commenced to explore the area immediately surrounding 2935's insertion point and collect any samples they could. Upon entering the alternate dimension, they notice that the temperature is pleasant, the sky is cloudy, and notably, there is no living vegetation in sight, including trees, plants, and grass. The surrounding area seems to be identical to the area outside of the cave in our dimension, and the team begins to travel down a road until they locate a farmhouse. Upon entering the house, they find the corpses of 3 adults and 1 child around a table, each appearing to be somewhat recently deceased. A newspaper on the table, dated April 19th, 2016, seems to be identical with a newspaper from that date from our dimension. A clock on the wall shows it to be the correct time in our dimension, proving that this dimension is fully connected to ours. The team notices that none of the food is covered in mold, despite being left out for seemingly over a week. They collect some samples, including taking a laptop and a smartphone, but they finally turn on the television nearby. Most of the channels contain nothing but test signals, but the Home Shopping Network has a live feed, showing 2 corpses and a burnt backdrop. On their way back to the cave, they note that they haven't heard any birds, insects, or car noises, just the wind. The samples brought back by the team showed no living cells or microbial life whatsoever, and the smartphone's last message sent talked about a card game, suggesting that whatever caused the owner to die was completely unexpected. The next mission, codenamed Overland, involved the team making their way to the alternate Foundation site that was broadcasting the transmission, and establish a forward camp there. 16 agents from MTF Epsilon 13 were sent through the cave for this mission, and they begin by commandeering several vehicles to aid their traversal. On the way to the site, they note that the roads are fairly clear, as not many vehicles were present at the time of the incident. They see several fires along the way, a few of which are from downed jetliners. They decide to split into two separate teams, one heading into the site itself, and the other going to the off-site server bank. The logs follow the team that goes into the site, and a couple members of the team note that they were at this site during the time when this event occurred. The site is in lockdown status, but they soon turn it off and make their way towards the front offices. They find corpses of individuals they recognize who work at the site in our dimension, although they note that there's no blood, suggesting that it was possibly a disease of some sort. They learn that at 4 a.m. on the 20th, a routine vitals check on the site reported no response from any of the vital transmitters. The system then pinged a number of levels of staff, which failed to respond, and then locked down the site and began broadcasting the help message automatically. The team attempts to contact a couple of the artificial intelligences patched into the site, seeing that they are still running, but they receive no response from them either. Exploring the site, the team leader finds his own corpse, along with many other corpses, each of which has suffered complete cellular death. They access a computer terminal, finding an encrypted message left only 3 days ago, after the point in which everything died. They send the message back home and head into the containment wing. They check on a few SCPs, noting that they are all dead, including SCP-2996, which they refer to as the Ghost Girl. They also find one of the team members' corpses, Agent Keller, despite him not being at this site during this time frame. And more notably, the corpse has actually decomposed, unlike all the other corpses they've found. Finally, they remember that SCP-682, the hard-to-destroy reptile, was being transferred recently, and spent a few days at this site. They head downstairs to where its containment cell would be, and open it. They find the corpse of 682, displaying no signs of life, which weirds out the team enough for them to head back topside. The next mission, codenamed 19, has the team head to another Foundation site, Site 19. During this expedition, only one of the 16 members' recorders managed to broadcast their feed back to base, Agent Keller, incidentally the same individual whose decomposing corpse the team found last time. Because of this, we're given much less information about this mission. They make it to Site 19 and find another emergency transmitter, although this one pings every few seconds, allowing them to confirm that the incident apparently occurred at 3:13 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. They find SCP-963, the amulet that allows for Dr. Bright's immortality, but it appears to be completely inert. They also find the broken remains of the possessive mask, 035, as well as a deceased 173, the sculpture. They also find SCP-079, which is an old artificial intelligence, which is also dead, confirming that anything resembling life died as well. It seems that the effect was completely global, affecting anything and everything that either lived or resembled life. The log ends with Keller saying that the on-site nuke at Site 19 was tripped, and they're locked in down there. He gives the team's final goodbyes, and the transmission suddenly cuts out. While MTF E-13 was exploring Site 19, an automated drone was sent into the alternate dimension in order to carry out aerial surveillance, as well as make contact with the team and collect the evidence and samples they've found. After flying a few kilometers into the air, The drone sees the surrounding area entirely devoid of life, with drifts of sand and dirt beginning to form alongside roadways and houses. The drone flies towards Indianapolis, citing a number of large fires, especially at the Indianapolis International Airport in the distance. Indianapolis itself is largely unscathed, and so the drone flies towards Foundation Site 19. After flying through a storm, the drone lands at the site, transmits its coordinates to the team, and powers down. 5 hours later, the drone is reactivated by Agent Keller, who loads a package onto the drone and then looks into the camera, saying, "I don't have any answers. I don't think there are any. I'll do this one thing and hope that fixes it. Seal it shut. You've got to lock it in here with us. I'm sorry." The drone then flies back towards the cave, and along the way, a nuclear explosion is seen at Site 19. So, what caused Agent Keller to detonate a nuke and kill off his entire team, telling the Foundation to seal up the cave? Why was the alternate corpse of Keller the only one that was decomposing? And what was on that encrypted audio message they found? All of our answers can be found in the final log in the report, where we get to read the encrypted message for ourselves. The person doesn't provide their name, but mentions that it's currently April 26th, and they've managed to get back into Site 81 despite the lockdown. The rest of the message reads, "I wish I had an explanation. If I didn't still bleed, I would think I was dreaming. I've had dreams that I was dreaming, but I wake up and I'm still here. Still here. Alone. And everyone is gone." They sent me to check this signal they had picked up near Joppa, just off of 70. Quick little exploratory mission. I was the closest. I pop in there and find this cave. And on the other side is the world I just left, but it's this one. This is the world I ended up in. The grass, the birds, things dropping out of the skies, and dark things floating in the water. People everywhere, lying where they stood. And the silence. God, the silence. Not even birds or bugs. Just wind. And nothing else. I came back to report on what I had seen, and I don't have any answers. I don't think there are any. I don't even have the right words to say. This world is different from the one I saw in the cave. People are moved around. The date is different. Things are different. Because it's my world. This is the one I left. This is... My family is here, and my friends. But now... it's all gone. Everything is dead. There's no evil magic. There's no supernatural stars. There's no futuristic ray gun or false vacuum device or... nothing. None of those things mattered. Nothing we did mattered. It's all gone. Something must have been in that cave. Something must have followed me out of there. Needed me to go in there. Needed me to bring it out. Let it loose. Let it do to my world what it did to that. Maybe it's me. Maybe I was the reason. Maybe I am death. If it was in there and I brought it back, then I am death. I've got myself in a containment cell. Jammed the goddamn door shut. I'm gonna put a bullet between my eyes. Everyone else is dead. What's one more? You know, it occurs to me, if you're listening to this, you're death too. What's the sequence of events here then? It seems that the Agent Keller of this alternate universe was sent to investigate a signal near Joppa, Indiana, much like what occurred in our universe, although he was alone. He passed through the cave and entered into a dead universe, again similar to what our Foundation did. He went back through the cave, but found his own universe to now be completely dead, just like the one he left. Assuming this happened immediately when he came back, he probably came back through the cave at 3:13 a.m. on the 20th. He makes it back to his own Site-81 and records this message, realizing that something within the cave, or within that other universe, needed him in order to travel to a fresh universe. Since he's completely alone in a dead world, he kills himself, and his body decomposes since he still carried living bacteria. The Keller from our universe finds this message and realizes that if they pass back through the cave to their own universe, they'll kill it. To prevent this, he tells the Foundation to seal the cave, and then locks his team in and detonates the nuke. The Foundation seals the cave with concrete and leaves it alone. We're left with two primary questions then. What exactly is the cause of this universal death? And is it specifically tied to Agent Keller? We can likely rule out some sort of disease or weapon, so it's probably some form of entity. Clearly, this entity has killed more than a couple universes, since the distress signal sent by the alternate Foundation continues to lure new Foundation teams into the cave. If it is an entity, it's certainly among the most powerful in existence, if not the most powerful, since it's capable of killing not only 682, but everything in existence simultaneously. It's hard to say if it's specifically tied to Keller, since we have limited information, but he is a common thread that we know of. Whether or not this entity of death is connected to Keller is left to your own thoughts. SCP-2935 exemplifies some of the best aspects of cosmic horror, presenting a cold, uncaring situation with no regards to humanity's perseverance or will to survive.
Exactly.
2935 is effective because it reminds us that death could come for us at any moment with no warning, and it doesn't really care who we are or what we've done. Maybe it doesn't take the form of a supernatural entity or a universal atrocity, but death is all around us.
Yes, indeed it is. You want 682. All right, let me see if I can find it. Yes, now I become death, the destroyer of worlds. It's unfortunate. But yes, we did not want that yeah, that one was long. We didn't want it coming out. We weren't sure what it was, but it was definitely anomalous. Not something we were prepared to deal with. Oh, I have a few good ones for you. Here we go, Killer Class.
Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who don't know, my name is Agent Max Lombardi.
Oh,
Senior
God.
Agent Max Lombardi. For reasons I can't go into right now, Researcher Miller is still out of action. So I'm gonna be taking this little, I don't know, what does he call it? Classroom session. So, the skip we're gonna be looking at today is an old favorite. SCP-682. Object Class Keter. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-682 must be destroyed as soon as possible. At this time, no means available to SCP teams are capable of destroying SCP-682, only
Yes,
able to
I
cause
know.
massive physical damage. SCP-682 should be contained within a 5 meter by 5 meter by 5 meter chamber with a 25 centimeter reinforced acid-resistant steel plate lining all inside surfaces. The containment chamber should be filled with hydrochloric acid until SCP-682 is submerged and incapacitated. Any attempts of SCP-682 to move, speak, or containment breach should be reacted to quickly and with full force, as called for by the circumstances. Personnel are forbidden to speak to SCP-682 for fear of provoking a rage state. All unauthorized personnel attempting to communicate with SCP-682 will be restrained and removed by force.
Indeed.
Due to its frequent attempts at containment breach, difficulty of containment and incapacitation, and high threat of Foundation exposure, SCP-682 is to be contained in sight. The Foundation will use the best of its resources to maintain all land within 50 kilometers clear of human development. It's kind of simple. Okay, let's move on. Description: SCP-682 is a large, vaguely reptile creature of unknown origin. It appears to be extremely intelligent and was observed to engage in complex communication with SCP-79 during their limited time of exposure. SCP-682 appears to have hatred of all life. Who doesn't? Which has been expressed in several interviews during containment. See Addendum 682-B. We're going to take a listen to that in a moment, so sit tight. SCP-682 has always been observed to have extremely high strength, speed, reflexes, though exact levels vary with its form. 682's physical body grows and changes very quickly, growing or decreasing in size as it consumes or sheds material. SCP-682 gains energy from anything it ingests, organic or inorganic. Digestion seems to be aided by a set
This
of
gentleman
filtering
doesn't
gills
do that, man. I believe
inside
he
of
did one or
SCP-682's
two.
nostrils, which are able to remove usable matter from any liquid solution, enabling
That
it to
is one of our
constantly regenerate
researchers.
from the acid it's contained in. SCP-682's regenerative capabilities and resilience are staggering, and SCP-682 has been seen moving and speaking, with its body 87% destroyed or rotted. In case of containment breach, SCP-682 is to be tracked and recaptured by all available mobile task forces, and no teams with fewer than 7 members are cleared to engage it. To date, attempted breaches have numbered at 17, while successful breaches have numbered at 6. Alright, let me get this little doohickey here. There we go. Okay, this is Addendum 682-B, portion of recorded transcript of... and play.
Now, why did you kill those fathers? If you don't talk now, we will remove you from this attempt and place you back into... Pardon? Speak up. Move the mic up closer. That microphone only has so much gain. Move closer to it.
His throat's messed up, man. Look at it. He ain't talking. Disgusting.
Yeah. Pretty fucked up, right? Okay, so this is Addendum 682-D. Breaches with 682. Listen, I'm gonna level with you here. You can see this right now. Pretty much all of it is redacted. It's just a big bundle of redacted. I'll give you the shortened version. Alright? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Handled by Agent Redacted. Personnel, insert number here. Killed. That's all you need to know. All you need to know. Unless anybody here knew somebody called D211. Anyone? I didn't think so. Alright, let's move on. Addendum 682-E. Termination options. Log of events 682-E18. Dr. attempts to use SCP-409 on SCP-682. General. And Dr. observing. 0400 hours. Exposure. SCP-682 began to tear at the point of
It
contact,
is.
causing massive trauma to the area. SCP-682 requests several times to know what it's been exposed to. 0800 hours. Crystallization begins, spreading much slower than normal. 1200 hours. SCP-682 shows signs of extreme pain and begins having seizures.
It is quite nice, yes.
1300 hours. Crystallization stops at 62% conversion. Crystallized area explodes, causing massive physical trauma to SCP-682. 1400 hours. SCP-682 recovers from exposure. Despite the loss of all limbs and organs,
Yes.
SCP-682 begins regeneration,
Yes, it is.
stating that it will attempt to kill and consume all staff involved in Event 682-E18.
I have to, Grish. I have to.
SCP-682 appears to now be immune to SCP-409. The use of other SCP items to terminate SCP-682 must now be first tested on samples of 682 before full-scale testing. It's just common sense, people. In accordance, the Doctor's recommendations, see Document 27B-6, Dr. and Dr. have requested permission to attempt the termination of SCP-682 using SCP-689. The request is currently pending approval from. It is also being suggested by Dr. Gears to use SCP-182 in an attempt to communicate with SCP-682. SCP-182 has expressed reluctance and refuses to enter the containment chamber of SCP-682,
Do you blame it?
if at all possible.
I don't blame it.
182's got a real good head on his shoulders. Trust me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, me. Stick it in a spaceship, jettison it into space, make sure it doesn't hit the sun. You hear that? Make sure it doesn't hit the sun. Alright. Well, folks, it's been a pleasure. Me and my buddy Barnes got a game of poker going. Who's game? Come on. Come on. This guy right here. Okay, I'm going. Okay.
Now, as you can see, there are many different versions of finding out about the SCPs.
If you want to come, come.
Max Lombardi is interesting. It is. The Volgut is very good. Shall we look at SCP-2662? I did, but we could do it again if you like. But before we do that, well, I'm about to introduce you to one of the most adorable SCPs we have in containment. Please say hello to SCP-999.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Miller, and the SCP we're going to be looking at today is SCP-999. Object Class: Safe. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-999 is allowed to freely roam the facility should it desire to, but otherwise must stay in its pen either between
yes.
8 p.m. or 9 p.m. for sleeping, or during emergency lockdowns for its own safety. Subject is not allowed out of its pen at night or off facility grounds at any time. Pen is to be kept clean and food replaced twice daily. All personnel are allowed inside SCP-999's holding area, but only if they are not assigned to other tasks at the time, or if they are on a break. Subject is to be played with when bored and spoken to in a calm, non-threatening tone.
Yes.
Description: SCP-999 appears to be a large, amorphous, gelatinous mass of translucent orange slime. weighing about 54 kilograms with a consistency similar to that of peanut butter. Subject's size and shape is easily malleable and can change shape at will, though when at rest, SCP-999 becomes a rounded, oblate dome roughly 2 meters wide and 1 meter in height. The surface of SCP-999 consists of a thin, transparent membrane similar to that of an animal cell, roughly 0.5 centimeters thick, and is highly elastic, allowing SCP-999 to flatten portions of its body up to 2 centimeters thin. This surface is also hydrophobic, although SCP-999 can willfully absorb liquids. See Addendum 999-A. The rest of SCP-999's body is filled with a viscous orange substance of unknown chemical makeup, though it is capable of digesting organic materials with ease. Subject's temperament is best described as playful and dog-like. When approached, SCP-999 will often react with overwhelming elation, slithering over to the nearest person and leaping upon them, hugging them with a pair of pseudopods while nuzzling the person's face with a third pseudopod, all the while emitting high-pitched gurgling and cooing noises. The surface of SCP-999 emits a pleasing odor that differs with whomever it is interacting with. Recorded scents include chocolate, fresh laundry, bacon, roses, and Play-Doh. Simply touching SCP-999's surface causes an immediate mild euphoria, which intensifies the longer one is exposed to SCP-999 and lasts long after separation from the creature. Subject's favorite activity is tickle wrestling, often by completely enveloping a person from the neck down and tickling them until asked to stop, though it does not always immediately comply with this request. Though injuries may occur, SCP-999 has never been found to purposefully attempt to harm others, and will immediately back away and contract its body into a quivering mound while gurgling in a similar manner to a whimpering dog, seemingly apologizing for hurting someone on accident. While the creature will interact with anyone, it seems to have a special interest in those who are unhappy or hurt in any way. Persons suffering from crippling depression or PTSD, for example, have reported having a far more positive outlook on life after multiple interactions with SCP-999. The possibility of manufacturing antidepressants from SCP-999 slime is currently being discussed. In addition to its playful behavior, SCP-999 seems to love all animals, especially humans, refusing to eat any meat and even risking its own life to save others. On one occasion, leaping in front of a person to take a bullet fired at them.
Well,
Subject's
welcome,
intellect
SCP
is still up for
Foundation.
debate. Though its behavior is infantile, it seems to understand human speech and most modern technology, including guns. SCP-999's diet consists entirely of candy and sweets, with M&Ms and Necco wafers being its favorites. Its eating
M&Ms
methods
are
are
everyone's
similar to
favorite.
those of an amoeba. Addendum SCP-999-A. Reminder to all staff. SCP-999 is not to consume caffeinated soft drinks of any kind. Last week, someone gave SCP-999 a can of cola along with its usual breakfast.
Oh
Not
dear.
only was it literally bouncing off the walls for half an hour, the carbonation made SCP-999 visibly queasy afterwards, and it refused to
Aww.
eat the rest of the day. SCP-999
Poor
has thankfully
999.
recovered since, but the staff member in question has been reprimanded.
Woohoo! I would have done more to reprimand him.
Addendum SCP-999-B. The following is a report from an experiment in which SCP-682 is exposed to SCP-999 in the hopes that it will curb the creature's omnicidal rage.
SCP-999 is released into SCP-682's containment area. SCP-999 immediately slithers towards SCP-682.
Oh, it's so adorable.
SCP-999 moves in front of
That's so
SCP-682,
cute.
jumping up and down in a dog-like manner while calling out in a high-pitched squealing noise. SCP-682 immediately steps on SCP-999, completely
dear.
flattening SCP-999. Observers were about to abort the experiment when SCP-682 started talking again. SCP-999 can be seen crawling up from between SCP-682's toes, up along its side and around
It
its
is so
neck,
cute.
where it clings on and begins gently nuzzling with its pseudopod. A wide grin slowly spreads across SCP-682's face.
Oh, welcome, Lady Random! And lurk all you want. Lurk away.
SCP-682 repeats the word happy for several minutes, laughing occasionally before escalating into non-stop laughter. As laughter continues, SCP-682 rolls around on its back, slamming its tail upon the floor with dangerous force.
I think that's the happiest anyone's ever heard, 682.
SCP-682 and SCP-999 continue the tickle fight until SCP-682 finally wears down and appears to fall asleep with what would appear to be a smile on its face. After 15 minutes with no activity, 2 D-Class personnel enter the room to retrieve SCP-999. When SCP-999 is removed, SCP-682 immediately
you knew
wakes
this was
up
gonna
and
end
unleashes
badly.
an unidentifiable wave of energy from its body, all the while laughing manically. All persons within the wave's range collapse into crippling fits of laughter, allowing SCP-682 to escape and slaughter all in its path. Meanwhile, SCP-999 quickly rescues as many persons as it can, taking them to a safe place to recover from SCP-682's laughter wave, while agents suppress and recontain SCP-682. Despite the tragedy that SCP-682 had brought upon the facility, SCP-999 has not shown any fear towards the creature, and in fact has made gestures suggesting it wants to play with SCP-682 again.
Oh dear.
682, however, has stated that feculent little can die.
Oh, wonderful.
Memo from Dr. While the test was unsuccessful and ended in tragedy, that had to be the funniest thing I have ever seen. I never thought I'd see the day when I would regard SCP-682 as cute.
It's not cute.
Please send me a copy of the security tapes as soon as possible. I'm just gonna end this lecture with a piece of advice. Don't try and use 999 as some kind of therapy. It doesn't work, and you
No.
just end up getting banned from its pen. It happened to my friend. Turns out something that eats M&Ms and Necco wafers doesn't really taste that good when it's coming in, or feel that good when it's coming out. I know. Too much information. Sorry, it's been a
Yes,
long
that was
week.
definitely
Anyway.
too much information, Dr. Maxwell.
Thank you for listening, if indeed you still
For
are,
Dr. Miller.
and you are all dismissed. Goodbye.
Well, that was interesting. Very rarely do they try to use one SCP to contain another SCP. It's never a good idea. It never goes the way you want. And, well, as you can see, it can result in a great deal of tragedy. So tragic. And we will be right back momentarily. We are going to take a quick 5-minute break. Don't forget, please do not stray too far away. We will be resuming shortly. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Our next SCP is an unusual one. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chow. Thank you, Grish. All SCPs can come in the most unusual shapes and forms, and this one is no exception. Thank you, El.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Researcher Miller, and the SCP we're going to be studying today is SCP-823. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-823 is to be secured by no fewer than 6 on-site personnel until such time as decontamination protocols can be established and the artifact in question neutralized. Personnel must respect a 20-meter safe zone around the currently established red zone at all costs. Any individual, civilian or not, who enters the established red zone is to be terminated immediately by sniper fire. Should music or piping be heard emanating from within the red zone, Foundation personnel on site are to immediately don protective earplugs and withdraw from their positions to a 2-kilometer perimeter beyond the currently established yellow zone, and inform Foundation scientific personnel immediately. Following the realignment event, Foundation science personnel will survey the area and determine the boundaries of the new red and yellow zones using Procedure 823-1 Alpha. Due to the necessity of maintaining auditory alertness, no personal music devices or radios, aside from necessary equipment, are to be allowed at the observation site. Description: SCP-823 is an abandoned theme park located in... Site was abandoned after several violent events resulting in the deaths of park attendees. A complete list of said events is included in Supplement 823-01-13, quote, civilian deaths attributed to SCP-823.
And there have been many.
SCP-823 was finally abandoned after the events of also known as Bloody Sunday. When the influence of the artifact in question reached a 20-year peak, 231 attendees were killed and another 7 injured or maimed. A complete list of casualties is included in Supplement 823-1-14, quote, civilian deaths resulting from Event 823-99 Euclid, but include 2 individuals, male and female, fused together at multiple points after emerging from the Tunnel of Love dark ride. 1 individual wearing a Happy Hippo mascot uniform, found dead of suffocation. Mouth, trachea, and lungs were discovered to be filled with a fibrous substance, later determined to be identical to the stuffing in said mascot uniform.
Not a pleasant way to die.
15 individuals recovered from the Thriller Chiller roller coaster, all decapitated by blunt force. Witnesses reported that the deaths did not occur simultaneously, but in groups of 2, starting with the front row seats and ending with the back. Forensic analysis indicates that each set of deaths corresponded to a loop or turn in the roller coaster's tracks. Dead. 1 individual recovered from under the Thriller Chiller roller coaster, dead of broken neck and massive cranial trauma caused by a 50-foot fall from an inverted position. Individual was seated at the back of said roller coaster and somehow managed to extricate self from the ride's safety harness halfway through the ride. Dead. 1 individual found dismembered inside the House of Mirrors attraction. Left arm was found 16 feet to the north from the torso. Left leg was found inverted and attached to the ceiling by sinews. Right leg was found in the possession of Subject 79, partially consumed. Forensic analysis indicates that teeth marks found on flesh and bone of said leg are human in origin. To date, no trace of right arm has been found alive. For complete record of casualties, Please see Supplement 823-01-14. Civilian deaths resulting from Event 823-99-Euclid. Following said event, Foundation Mobile Task Force Row 71, Origami Toads, was sent into the site to assess the situation and carry out containment procedures. MTF Row 71 was not successful in determining the cause or location of the deaths due to casualties inflicted on team members. See Supplement 823-01-15. Quote, casualties among MTF Row 71 resulting from Event 823-99-Euclid. Partial list of casualties included: MTF Row 71 Commander. Cause of death: suicide caused by forced sexual entry through left eye, resulting in
Ooh, that's not a good
unsurvivable
way to
brain
die.
trauma. Agent. Cause of death: suicide. Individual was found with all ammunition disassembled, casings and bullets discarded. Grams of propellant, consistent with the amount of disassembled ammunition found on scene, were retrieved from individual's stomach and intestines. Agent. Cause of death: suicide. Individual was discovered with lacerated lungs and a broken jaw. Missing teeth were retrieved from individual's lungs and trachea. For complete record
Terrible.
of casualties, please see Supplement 823-01-15. Quote, casualties among MTF Row 71 resulting from Event 823-99-Euclid. Following the deaths of 50% of the Mobile Task Force personnel, on-site supervisor ordered an immediate mission abort. Containment protocol was switched from retrieval to on-site securement. Standard media blackout procedures were carried out, including Addendum 823-1. Destruction of site per 05 level order. Request for immediate destruction of site by airstrike is denied due to proximity to civilian population, lack of plausible cover story scenario, and unknown nature of artifact in question. Addendum 823-2. Red Zone. As of this date, SCP-823 has undergone 3 realignment events requiring resurveying of affected zones. Apparent range of Red Zone has increased in size by 5% during that time. Rate of expansion appears to be accelerating at a linear rate. See Report 823-2-7. Quote, result of 7th survey of SCP-823. Request upgrade to Keter. Addendum 823-3. Upgrade to Keter. Denied by O5 Council. Reason: insufficient data to justify reclassification. I never liked theme parks anyway. Anyway, that about does it for today. Thank you all for listening, and you are all dismissed. Goodbye.
Ah, yes, the O5s. They can override anything. However, I do agree it should be considered better. Far too many deaths. Now let's see. We're now going to take a look at some of the SCP viruses. And there are many. Here we go. You'll find this one extremely interesting. Give you an insight into some of the things that we actually have here. And why you should stay away from them unless you're researching.
Item number SCP-008. Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-008 samples have been deemed Class 5 extreme biological hazards, and all related protocols apply. Incineration and irradiation measures will be deployed in the event of political or military action, which may result in the facility being dismantled, a power failure, or zero communications from operatives or outside channels during any given 8-hour period. The quarantine period for operatives leaving the facility is 4 months. If a breach has occurred, incineration and irradiation measures shall be deployed. It should be the policy of all G2 sites to not prepare an evacuation procedure. Description: SCP-008 is a complex prion, samples of which are stored in each of the known G2 sites. Research into SCP-008 is highly classified, and primarily aimed at preventing research which may lead to the synthesis of SCP-008 in the distant future. Traits of the SCP-008 prion include 100% infectiousness, 100% lethality, transmission through exposed mucous membranes and all bodily fluids, not airborne or waterborne. Symptoms of infection with SCP-008 manifest no more than 3 hours after exposure and include flu-like symptoms with high fever plus severe dementia in later stages. Coma onset approximately 20 hours after first symptoms appear and 12 hours after noticeable dementia. Coma onset will be considered onset of death. A period of sporadic cellular necrosis occurs, which comes to resemble gangrene. Surviving tissue assumes its original function and is highly resilient. Red blood cells greatly increase oxygen storage capacity, resulting in slower blood flow and increased muscle endurance and strength. Nervous and muscular systems are unaffected by total organ failure for several hours. Metabolism may decrease to extremely low levels, allowing subject to survive for over 10 years without nutrition. High blood viscosity results in negligible blood flow from gunshot, puncture, and slashing injuries. Conditioned behavior, motor controls, and instinctive behavioral mechanisms are damaged, and cognitive abilities are severely retarded and erratic. Animals experience excessive brain necrosis and are inactive.
It is a zombie
Subject can
virus.
adapt to its damaged nervous systems, but is limited to basic physical activities, including standing up, balancing on 2 legs, walking, biting, grabbing, and crawling. Subject will energetically move towards sights, sounds, and smells it associates with living humans. Subject will attempt to ingest living humans if physical contact is made. Neutralizing fully infected subjects requires significant cranial trauma. There is strong evidence to suggest SCP-008 itself did not form naturally on Earth, since variants of similar complexity would have displaced much of the ecosystem. In 1959, a short collaborative effort with the USSR to locate G2 sites and eliminate SCP-008 was negotiated following their discovery. The status of SCP-008 in Russian custody since collaboration ended is unknown. Addendum 008-1, SCP-500 has been found to be able to completely cure SCP-008, even in the advanced stages of the disease. Item number, SCP-16. Object Class, Keter. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-16 is to remain within the confines of a 5x5 by 5 meter room at all times, maintained at a temperature not to exceed 0 degrees Celsius. SCP-16 itself is to remain in the petri dish in the containment cube at all times, unless directed otherwise by Level 4 or 05 personnel. Full documentation of experimentation with SCP-16 must be submitted before and after samples and duplicates of SCP-16 may be taken. Failure to follow these procedures will result in termination or reassignment as Class D personnel.
And you don't want to
Only
end up
authorized
there.
personnel may be permitted to obtain samples of and experiment with SCP-16 under BCL-5 containment conditions. If an outbreak does occur, despite following the aforementioned procedures, Directive-based personnel are to implement a Code Sigma lockdown and containment plan. Infected personnel are to be terminated on site by security forces wearing Standard Mission-Oriented Protective Posture, or MOPP, anti-biological and anti-chemical equipment. Should the infection not be contained after 48 hours, the on-site nuclear device is to be detonated. Remaining personnel are not to be evacuated under any circumstances. SCP-16 has been shown to survive for up to 6 hours on hard surfaces, and up to several minutes in air. High-intensity ultraviolet light and high concentrations of orthothialdehyde solution have been demonstrated to be effective in disinfecting non-organic surfaces. Description: SCP-16 is a blood-borne pathogen recovered from a mine worker who injured himself while working in a deep coal seam. Said wound became contaminated with coal dust from the mine, possibly infecting the worker with dormant spores. Over the next several days, SCP-16 proceeded to infect the remaining employees at the mining camp, as well as the CDC crisis team dispatched to deal with the epidemic. Foundation personnel then took over the investigation and terminated all affected personnel. Patient Zero was brought into captivity, and the mine shaft was collapsed by an explosive device. SCP-16 has an incubation period ranging from 24 hours to 2 years, depending on the presence and number of other human hosts in the area. First symptoms resemble the common cold and include itchy eyes, runny nose, coughing, and bodily aches. Phase 2 begins in 48 hours and consists of a controlled form of hemorrhagic fever, as the organism causes a small amount of blood to become aspirated in the lungs, creating an aerosol effect. During Phase 3, the host crashes and bleeds out, bleeding profusely from every bodily orifice, including the nose, tear ducts, anus, skin pores, mouth, urethra, and in case of females, vagina. Blood pressure skyrockets during the final stage. Hosts have been observed projectile vomiting blood to distances of over 5 meters. Should the host survive this near-total exsanguination, the pathogen will become dormant once more, returning to incubation phase. What distinguishes SCP-16 from other strains of hemorrhagic fever, such as Ebola and Marburg, is its unusual response to high stress. Should the subject undergo a high-stress situation, such as a life-threatening crisis, the organism will change its survival tactic from rapid reproduction to the rewriting of the host's DNA and stimulation of rapid cell division. Major physiological changes occur within the first 24 hours, with complete bodily reconstruction occurring within 2 weeks' time. Most hosts do not survive the process due to the heavy demands made on the body. Due to their similarities as fatal contagions that stimulate the production of excess organs, a possible link to SCP-1801 is under investigation. An interesting side effect of the transformation is an increased aggressive urge. It is believed that this may be an attempt to maximize the spread of the virus in a manner similar to rabies. On another note, subjects who undergo bodily transformation no longer appear to exhibit SCP-16's hemorrhagic properties. However, subjects infected by transformed hosts will still undergo the normal SCP-16 infection process. Addendum: Experiment log of SCP-16's transformative properties. Subject D-16-1. D-Class personnel infected by SCP-16. Upon first showing symptoms, subjects' quarters were slowly flooded with water over a 24-hour period. SCP-16 mutated into a teratomorphic state, transforming subjects' lungs into gills. Subject survived for 2 more weeks as SCP-16 transformed its limbs into fins, caused its eyes to atrophy, and enhanced its sense of hearing into a cetacean-type echolocation ability. Subject was terminated by draining all water from its quarters, causing it to asphyxiate. Body was subsequently cremated without autopsy. Subject D-16-2. D-Class personnel infected by SCP-16. Upon first showing symptoms, subject's quarters were slowly flooded with water over a 24-hour period. SCP-16 mutated into a teratomorphic state, causing subject to undergo rapid muscular growth and increased bone growth on knuckles. Subject then attempted to escape from confinement by punching through the reinforced steel door. Subject was not successful and died by drowning. Note: same situation, 2 different responses. Interesting. Dr.
Very interesting.
Subject D-16-3. D-Class personnel infected by SCP-16. Subject was previously a chemical engineer who poisoned his wife upon discovering her adultery. Upon first showing symptoms, subject's quarters were slowly flooded with water over a 24-hour period. SCP-16 mutated into a teratomorphic state, causing subject to grow an unusual organ on his chest, consisting of a chamber and 2 separate tubes. Organ continued to take in water and swell in size, until Foundation personnel, realizing what SCP-16 may be attempting, terminated the subject by gunshot. Organ was found to contain several gas sacs filled with acetylene gas and oxygen. Subject D-16-4. D-Class personnel infected by SCP-16. Subject was told to concentrate on forming wings. No stress was applied. SCP-16 did not mutate into teratomorphic state. Subject died of exsanguination during Phase 3. Subject D-16-5. D-Class personnel infected by SCP-16. Subject was told to concentrate on forming wings
Which
and
is
placed
silly.
in an acrylic box suspended 305 meters or 1,000 feet above a mine shaft. A timer was placed outside the box, which subject was told indicated the time to release. SCP-16 mutated into teratomorphic state, causing subject to grow a tentacle-like organ on his left wrist similar to a spider's spinnerets. Subject extended said organ through one of the box's air holes and extruded a strong silk-like substance, which it then used to secure the box to the cable. Subject was terminated when the countdown reached 0 and the bomb detonated. Item number: SCP-149. Object Class: Keter. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-149 in any of its instances is to be kept inside a sealed plexiglass box for observation. Oxygen and a nutrient mist are to be released into the containment cell every 2 hours. If any instance of SCP-149 escapes its cell, Protocol 42 Charlie is to be brought into effect on any and all contaminated personnel by order of O512 after Incident 149-1. Description:
I find this absolutely
SCP-149
fascinating.
is a breed of mosquito, which
Oh, so
carries a strain of
terrifying.
retrovirus, herein referred to as SCP-149-A, that mutates regenerating human cells into fertilized mosquito eggs. SCP-149-A is injected directly into the bloodstream when
Not a good
SCP-149
way to die.
feeds. The SCP-149-A quickly works on the nucleus of the cells, warping the DNA. The first set of cells bred from these changed instructions closely resemble cysts and are concentrated in the lining of the esophagus and the sinuses. Upon dissection, however, these cysts are revealed to be filled with SCP-149's larvae, the cysts acting as a protective casing against external forces. SCP-149 appears to go through its maturation cycle in a matter of hours. By the time the subject is able to feel any effects, the first generation of SCP-149 has already grown inside the subject's body. SCP-149 primarily achieves exodus through the
Indeed.
mouth and nostrils, occasionally being
gets
diverted through the
worse.
sphenoid sinuses to escape through the eye sockets. Infection by SCP-149 is fatal, and chance of infection has been estimated to be 50% from 1 bite. Addendum: Incident 149-1. An incidence of SCP-149 escaped and infected multiple Class D subjects, the majority of whom did not report SCP-149's contact with them. Within 5 hours, SCP-149 had matured in these hosts and burst out of them, infecting several staff members.
Which is
It was only
unfortunate.
thanks
but
to
it
the quick
happens.
thinking of Dr. who sealed sublevels 12 through 15 that the entire site was not infected. As a response to this, O5 Command has created Protocol 42 Charlie to be used if SCP-149 escapes confinement. Lesson complete. To continue with your orientation.
Ah, so interesting. So disgusting in some cases. All very dangerous and all very deadly. You don't want to run into these. Here we go. Let's do this one. This one is a rather interesting case. It is a human.
Item
If
number
you have some.
SCP-001. Object class Euclid/Keter. Special containment procedures.
Oh, that's new.
Because of the nature of SCP-001, no containment procedures are
This is
necessary.
not. One moment. We are going on a replay here. Not what I wanted. Ah. You didn't learn everything there is to know about the Plague Doctor. This is enlightening.
Item number SCP-049. Object class Euclid.
He is not
Special
Euclid.
containment procedures.
He is Keter.
SCP-049 is contained within a standard secure humanoid containment cell in Research Sector 02 at Site 19. SCP-049 must be sedated before any attempts to transport it. During transport, SCP-049 must be secured within a Class 3 humanoid restriction harness, including a locking collar and extension restraints, and monitored by no fewer than 2 armed guards. While SCP-049 is generally cooperative with most Foundation personnel, outbursts or sudden changes in behavior are to be met with elevated force. Under no circumstances should any personnel come into direct contact with SCP-049 during these outbursts. In the event SCP-049 becomes aggressive, the application of lavender has been shown to produce a calming effect on the entity. Once calmed, SCP-049 generally becomes compliant and will return to containment with little resistance. In order to facilitate the ongoing containment of SCP-049, the entity is to be provided with the corpse of a recently deceased animal, typically a bovine or other large mammal, once every 2 weeks for study. Corpses that become instances of SCP-049-2 are to be removed from SCP-049's containment cell and incinerated. SCP-049 is no longer permitted to interact with human subjects, and requests for human subjects are to be denied. Temporary Containment Procedure Update. Per Containment Committee Order 049.S19.17.1, SCP-049 is no longer permitted to interact directly with any members of Foundation staff, nor is it to be provided with any additional corpses to be used in its surgeries. This order shall persist indefinitely, until such time a consensus regarding the ongoing containment of SCP-049 can be reached. Description: SCP-049 is a humanoid entity, roughly 1.9 meters in height, which bears the appearance of a medieval plague doctor. While SCP-049 appears to be wearing the thick robes and the ceramic mask indicative of that profession, the garments instead seem to have grown out of SCP-049's body over time. The robes and gloves are identical to a thick hide, built up on the skin, while the mask is composed of a kind of chitin growing out of the bones of the face, and are now nearly indistinguishable from whatever form is beneath them. X-rays indicate that despite this, SCP-049 does have a humanoid skeletal structure beneath its outer layer.
Yes.
SCP-049 is capable of speech in a variety of languages, though tends to prefer English or medieval French. The entity claims to have originated in 15th century France, though admits that it is particularly well traveled. While SCP-049 is generally cordial and cooperative with Foundation staff, it can become especially irritated, or at times, outright aggressive, if it feels that it is in the presence of what it calls the pestilence. Although the exact nature of this pestilence is currently unknown to Foundation researchers, it does seem to be an issue of immense concern to SCP-049. SCP-049 will become hostile with individuals it sees as being affected by the pestilence, often having to be restrained should it encounter such. If left unchecked, SCP-049 will generally attempt to kill any such individual. SCP-049 is capable of causing all biological functions of an organism to cease through direct skin contact. How this occurs is currently unknown, and autopsies of SCP-049's victims have invariably been inconclusive. SCP-049 has expressed frustration or remorse after these killings, indicating that they have done little to kill the pestilence. Though will usually seek to then perform a crude surgery on the corpse using the implements contained within a black doctor's bag it carries on its person at all times. The space within this bag is seemingly anomalously large, as
course it is.
SCP-049 has been observed pulling objects larger than the bag itself from within it in order to operate on deceased subjects. While these surgeries are not always successful, they often result in the creation of instances of SCP-049-2. SCP-049-2 instances are reanimated corpses that have been operated on by SCP-049. These instances do not seem to retain any of their prior memories or mental functions, having only basic motor skills and response mechanisms. While these instances are generally inactive, moving very little and in a generally ambulatory fashion, they can become extremely aggressive if provoked, or if directed to by SCP-049. SCP-049-2 instances express active biological functions, though these are vastly different from currently understood human physiology. Despite these alterations, SCP-049 often remarks that these subjects have been cured. Addendum 049.1 Discovery. SCP-049 was discovered during the investigation of a series of unknown disappearances in the town of Montauban in southern France. During a raid on a local home, investigators found several instances of SCP-049-2, as well as SCP-049. While law enforcement personnel engaged the hostile 049-2 instances, SCP-049 was noted as watching the engagement and taking notes in its journal. After all of the 049-2 instances were dispatched, SCP-049 willingly entered Foundation custody. SCP-049 upon discovery. The following interview was conducted by Dr. Raymond Ham during the initial investigation. Interviewer: Dr. Raymond Ham, Site 85. Interviewee: SCP-049. Begin log.
Alors, comment devrions-nous commencer une introduction?
Is that French? Can we get a translator?
The King's English. No need for translation, sir. I can speak it well enough.
Good. My name is Dr. Raymond Ham, and
Ah, a doctor. A like-minded individual, no doubt. Wherein is your speciality, sir?
Cryptobiology. Why?
A medical man, such as myself. Wonders abound. And here, I worried I had been abducted by common street thugs. This place, then, this is your laboratory. I had wondered, as clean as it is, and with such little trace of the pestilence here.
The pestilence? What do you mean?
The scourge. The great dying. Come now.
The
You
Black
know
Plague.
What is it they call it? No matter. The pestilence, yes. It abounds outside these walls, you know. So many have succumbed, and many more will continue to, until such time as a perfect cure can be developed. Fortunately, I am very close. It is my duty in life to rid the world of it, you see. The cure to end all cures.
When you say the great dying, are you talking about the bubonic plague?
I don't know what that is.
I see. Right, well, the entities our agents encountered at the house, they were dead when you encountered them, yes? You reanimated them.
In a manner of speaking, you see things too simply, Doctor. Expand your horizons.
He is
Life
creepy.
and death, sickness and health. These are amateur terms for amateur physicians. There is only one ailment that exists in the world of men, and that is the pestilence, and nothing else. Make no mistake, they were very ill. All of them.
You think you cured those people?
Indeed. My cure is most effective.
But the things we recovered were not human.
Yes, well, it is not a perfect cure. but that will come with time and further experimentation. I have spent a lifetime developing my methods, Dr. Ham, and will spend a lifetime more if necessary. Now, we have wasted too much time. There is work to do. I will require a laboratory of my own, one where I can continue my research unimpeded. And assistance, of course, though I can provide those on my own.
Yes, you can.
Oh, I don't think our organization would be willing to.
Nonsense. We are all men of science. Fetch your coat and show me to my quarters, Doctor. Our work begins now.
End log. Interviewer's note. While SCP-049 is capable of communicating in a very human way, there is a strange sense of unease that one experiences when in its presence. Make no mistake, there is something very uncanny about this entity indeed. Additionally, we've confiscated that pointed stick that SCP-049 keeps waving around. Part of this was due to standard confiscation protocols for the possessions of anomalies, in part because 049 really is a menace swinging it around like he does. The entity was displeased at first, but after we made some concessions in providing it with test subjects, which are admittedly more for the benefit of our own research, it warmed up to the idea.
That's why we
Addendum
have PFAS.
049.2.
They are
Observation
expendable.
log. While in containment at Site 19, SCP-049 has spent a considerable amount of time studying and performing surgery on the various mammalian corpses it has been provided. SCP-049 will routinely spend several days performing surgery, and then, regardless of whether or not the corpse becomes an instance of SCP-049-2, spending several more days documenting its findings in a thick leather journal stored within its doctor's bag. SCP-049 will often seek to share its findings with members of Foundation staff. Notably, SCP-049's journals are not written in any known language, and attempts by linguists and codebreakers to decipher them have been unsuccessful. The following is a log of several occasions during which SCP-049 was observed operating on a mammalian corpse. Observational log 049.OL.1. Summary. Subject: SCP-049. Preface: a test subject, D85123, was introduced into SCP-049's containment cell. The entity expressed sincere gratitude towards all members of the containment and research staff. Observation notes. SCP-049 began by asking D85123 several standard medical questions as it began removing tools from its bag. Shortly after finishing its preparations, SCP-049 quickly closed the distance between the two, killing the subject with a touch to its throat. Afterwards, SCP-049 made a number of considerable alterations to the basic structure of the subject's corpse, often introducing fluids from within its bag into the subject by way of a hand-powered pump and copper tubing. The resulting 049-2 instance became animated, flailing and grasping at the walls of the chamber with a number of manufactured limbs, while moaning out of an oblong orifice now present in its sternum. During this time, SCP-049 was observed taking notes of the instance in its journal, and remarking to the watching research staff about the efficacy of its cure. Security personnel entered the chamber to move SCP-049 back to containment, and were attacked by the instance. The security team dispatched the 049-2 instance, and SCP-049 returned to containment with no resistance, stating that it was pleased with the results.
I'm sure he was.
Observational log 049.OL.2. Summary.
None of us were.
Subject: SCP-049. Preface: SCP-049 was provided the corpse of a recently deceased goat. SCP-049 expressed gratitude at the provision. Observation notes. SCP-049 operated on the goat corpse for several days, eventually resulting in an instance of SCP-049-2. SCP-049 expressed pleasure in this outcome, though admitted the disease was still in its nascent stage. My veterinarian practice is rudimentary, but the patient responded well to the procedure. Observational log 049.OL.3. Summary. Subject: SCP-049. Preface. SCP-049 was provided the corpse of a recently deceased orangutan. SCP-049 expressed noted gratitude at the provision due to the similarities between the orangutan and common human physiology. Observation notes. SCP-049 spent several days operating on the orangutan, reanimating it several times. However, SCP-049 appeared to be discontent with the results it experienced, returning to the creature 3 times after its initial reanimation for additional work. After it was unable to reanimate the corpse a 5th time, SCP-049 turned the corpse over to Foundation staff for incineration, stating, "I have learned so much from this. Though I fear my early optimism was misplaced, I hadn't yet come across such a stumbling block on my road to the cure. More subjects like this would do a great deal in advancing my research." Observational Log 049.OL.7. Full. Subject: SCP-049. Preface. SCP-049 was provided the corpse of a recently deceased bovine. SCP-049 expressed mild annoyance at the provision, though accepted it nonetheless. SCP-049 had stated its desire to work on human subjects several times between this occasion and the earlier provision of an orangutan, noting its discontentedness when they would not be provided. Observation notes. SCP-049 spent several days operating on the bovine corpse, breaking only to dine on a requested dinner of thin crackers, salted pork, and hard cheese. SCP-049 has expressed that it does not require sustenance, but enjoys it, and feels that the food helps to put it in the right mind to operate. Beginning first by embalming the corpse, SCP-049 was observed producing a number of long syringes from its bag, each containing a different dark viscous fluid. SCP-049 described these fluids as essences of the humors, and elaborated by saying, "The pestilence may bring about a systemic imbalance. In such a case, before true healing can begin, one must find the humors in balance, or the body will reject the cure." SCP-049 added to this statement by saying, "This is, of course, elementary knowledge for the practical physician. I would have thought you would have learned this during your education." Over the next few days, SCP-049 spent a considerable amount of time adjusting the organs of the bovine corpse with a number of large metal instruments. After 8 days, SCP-049 produced a lightning rod, which Dr. Ham exchanged for an electric cattle prod attached to an extension cord, and struck the corpse in several locations. This action seemingly had the effect of reanimating the bovine, which once again became ambulatory, despite the inversion of the head and reorientation of its limbs. Follow-up interview. Begin log.
Goodness.
We've watched you work for several weeks now, and honestly, I'm not sure I understand what you're doing. Could you describe your process in detail?
Oh, goodness no. The process is most intensive. As I said to your assistant, the best instruction you will find about my methods are here in my journals, as I have kept exhaustive records of my work there.
But no one could read them.
Well, my concern, Doctor, is that we still don't understand what you're seeking to cure, or how it manifests, or how turning these creatures into quasi-living, mindless drones helps in that effort.
You do not understand the pestilence, even after all this time. Doctor, it is an unspeakable horror, one that has shown its true face many times before, and will again. I find myself blessed with the wisdom and good senses needed to root it out and destroy it. But many, like yourself, cannot. It is a cruel judgment, I fear, to be at the mercy of a disease you cannot fully comprehend.
That still doesn't answer my question. How's your cure any kind of cure at all?
It is a cure. You may laugh at my
Circular
efforts if you
Conversations
please,
with
but do not
049.
besmirch the good name of scientific progress that has developed this great mercy. What you short-sightedly see here is a life better than any this creature could have hoped for. Stricken as it was with the pestilence, this creature is now clean. unable to spread the pestilence, and free from the terror it would have experienced otherwise.
This is hardly a creature at all, Doctor. It's not even...
Do not jape with me, sir. You and your colleagues are like so many others, unable to look past minor setbacks to see the salvation taking place before your very eyes. Do you wait to remove rotten timbers until the whole collapses on top of you? No. You find them and you pull them out and replace them with those untouched by rot. And most of all, you do not simply mock the structure because it now looks different to you. It is strong. It is free of disease.
I'm sorry. Didn't mean to agitate you. I'm just trying to understand.
Yes. Well, do mind your words in the future, Doctor. I am a professional, but even professionals may feel the bite of pride in dealing with criticism of their masterpiece. I will forgive this as an act of good faith between colleagues.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
No, that will be all. Another test subject on the usual schedule. You know my preference of subjects with more human anatomies.
End log. Attending researchers note. SCP-049 does seem to genuinely want to help other humans, though it has not yet been able to provide a concrete example of what exactly it is trying to save us all from. I have watched it now over several weeks, and while the outcomes do not seem to ever change, SCP-049 continues to claim that it is growing closer to its perfect cure. I think the entity may be more aware of the reality of these outcomes than it would like us to think. Addendum
he's a good poker player.
049.3 04/16/2017 incident. Starting shortly after SCP-049's initial containment, Dr. Ham conducted a number of interviews with the subject regarding its anomalous properties, and over time began to note its displeasure with its subjects and the SCP-049-2 instances. This continued for a period of several months, during which SCP-049 never exhibited any aggressive behaviors. On April 16, 2017, as Dr. Ham was entering SCP-049's test chamber to conduct another routine interview, the entity began to grow anxious and asked Dr. Ham if he was feeling well. Following protocol, Dr. Ham reminded SCP-049 that the interview was required, after which the entity became hostile and attacked Dr. Ham, killing him.
Yes.
Due to a lapse in security protocol, and because Dr. Ham did not activate the in-chamber emergency system, Dr. Ham's corpse was not discovered until 3 hours later, by which point SCP-049 had converted it into an instance of SCP-049-2. In the aftermath of this incident, SCP-049 was interviewed by Dr. Theron Sherman. Interviewer: Dr. Theron Sherman, Site 42. Interviewee: SCP-049. Begin log.
I need you to explain yourself. SCP-049, you are being directed to explain your actions, and I will remind you that failure to cooperate will result in further restrictions during your containment.
My actions do not need to be explained.
You killed Raymond Ham, and then butchered him until he...
Not dead. No, not dead. He is cured.
Cured? Cured of what?
The pestilence, sir. I had thought you, at least, would realize what luck it is. I detected it before.
What pestilence? You keep going on and on about this pestilence, but you have not once been able to properly identify this disease.
No.
What could you have possibly
As
seen
to
in him
say
today
that
that you had
049
not
is not a
seen
good
so
idea.
many times before? That it would be worth his life?
The pestilence presents and progresses in unforeseeable fashions, and has a queer way of creeping into the unprepared. And call it what you want, Doctor. It was a mercy I did to him. He is cured.
He's a
dead.
vegetable.
I would not expect you to understand. You and your ilk have proven time and time again not to be men of science, but men of emotion. You cannot appreciate the horrors I have seen. Those many millions who have succumbed to the pestilence and been changed.
Your cure cost Ray his life.
No, good sir. I have saved it. You would allow this world to slip back into the despair of disease and death, ignoring that I have created a miracle.
What disease? What pestilence? He was a healthy man. He was a good doctor.
I'm offering it freely to the afflicted. You are not worth this argument, sir. You are short-sighted and foolish. Dr. Ham was sick, and I cured him. I am the only one who can do this. My work must continue. There is still so much to learn, so much.
I've had enough of this.
And
Consider your allowances revoked.
Even you.
Welcome to Containment 049.
Might be saved.
We're done here.
I can save them all. I can cast down this plague once and for all. I can do this. Only me. I saved him. Dr. Ham. I cured him. He was sick. I know he was sick. I know he was. And you are all sick, but I can save you. I can save all of you because I am the cure.
End log.
Yeah, I don't want to hear.
049.4 Post-incident report interview. The following interview is an excerpt from the 4/16/17/049 incident report. The interview was conducted by Dr. Elijah Itkin and took place 3 weeks after the start of the initial investigation.
Oh, yes, I remember
Date:
this.
5/7/17. Interviewer: Dr. Elijah Itkin. Interviewee: SCP-049. Begin log.
SCP-049, we are conducting this interview to close out our investigation of your actions taken on April 16th that resulted in the death of a staff member. Do you have any comments to make?
Only that I look forward to the day when you will allow me to resume my work. I have spent the last few weeks compiling my notes and constructing a new theory for how the pestilence was able to infect someone in such an insidious manner that I nearly couldn't detect it.
Have you experienced any remorse for your actions? For the death of Dr. Ham?
Ah, yes. Well, the death of a colleague is always regrettable, but in the face of the pestilence we must be swift, Doctor, and act without hesitation.
Dr. Sherman noted in his report that you seemed to be mournful during your initial interview.
Mourn? Perhaps. I had not thought that. It is lamentable that a fellow doctor became infected, but the work continues. Regrettable as it was, Dr. Ham's death provided important insight. Living human subjects are the only way to proceed forward, I am decided. My cure is of little use on dead flesh, and I have gleaned all I can from your generous supply of corpses. My desires turn towards tending to those still living who suffer from the disease.
I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed.
Oh, Doctor. I wouldn't be so sure.
End log.
Ah, well, that was interesting. He is probably one of the more, shall we say, interesting of the SCPs. He's quite a conversationalist as well. Well, I don't want to overload everyone today, so I do believe that is enough for now. Tomorrow, we will be entering a simulation. We'll be entering a simulation of the life of a D-class prisoner. And you'll be able to, oh, you're welcome. You will be able to experience all the horrors of an actual containment breach. Lucky you. Oh, neither can I. Well, thank you so much for coming. Please don't forget to allow yourself to be escorted back to your quarters, and we will see you tomorrow. Have a good evening,